Okay, so let's do a little bit more learning, preparing for our flipped class. We are going to take all these informations, these iterations, and we're going to apply them in class for a grade throughout the semester, possibly the very next session, okay? So right now, we are going to focus on a definition for simple arguments. Do not worry about complex arguments for right now. So simple arguments are those that have only one conclusion. For right now, for the time being, any argument that I give you has only one conclusion, all right? Don't worry about this. We'll get to it later if I decide we're going to go for that. Now, something that I'm always going to want you to show me is the argument pattern for at least simple arguments. So an argument pattern, and I could have done like a full-blown concept triangle for this if I wanted to. Well, that's the order in which the premises and the conclusion actually occur in the argument that is in paragraph form. So put C page 1 for example. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the argument form for the argument that we just wrote down. Okay. All right. So here, let's do a little text box. If you need to, you can put your text box over here, but try to have it somewhere. You could even put a text box like that, okay? But we're going to do the argument form. And here you might put C page 2. Okay. By the way, we'll say that this is page 1, and we'll say that this is page 2, okay? All right, so the argument form for this one. So remember the definition said what? What was the definition for argument pattern? The order in which the premises and conclusion actually occur in the argument in paragraph form. Well, okay, it could be in paragraph form or listed form. So this right here is a paragraph in what I call listed form, okay? It presents the statements in a list. So it doesn't matter. In what order do we first see the statements? You could think of it that way as well. An argument pattern presents the statements in the order that they are encountered by the listener or the reader. So for this one, we get a premise that is then followed by another premise that is then followed by a what? A conclusion. So that is the form of this argument. Okay, so let's go back to this page. Okay, so that is a typical form for an argument that has 3 statements, okay? Premise, premise, conclusion. So in this class, since it's an intro class, I'm going to typically give you arguments that reflect the following patterns. Premise, premise, conclusion. Another one is conclusion, premise, premise. And then another one is premise, conclusion, premise. This is what will be true for what? Notice what it says. Simple arguments. Simple argument patterns, okay? Now, do I want to say anything else about this? Notice that the definition for argument, okay? Again, notice that the definition for argument does not say what order the statements must come in. It doesn't say that the premises must come first and the conclusion last. In our example, we did present premises, any premises first and then the conclusion last. But in philosophy and in everyday life, these statements could come in any order. We could rewrite this argument in paragraph form, and we could have this be the first statement, this be the second statement, and this would be the third statement. In other words, we could write it in the form PCP. We could also start the paragraph with this statement, the conclusion, then write this next, and then write this next. So that would be conclusion, premise, premise. That's what it would look like. That we could do that if we wanted to convert this into paragraph form, okay? All right, so yes, you will need to, after you analyze an argument and you figure out what's a premise or conclusion, then you will say, okay, here's the argument pattern. All right, so then let's go ahead and go to the last part of this page. Words or phrases that typically tell you a premise is being put forth. Okay, so you learned about this in your reading as well. I wanted to pull the basics that we're going to use all semester into this 2-page document. Notice this, warning, the following, in this class at least, okay, the following will not count as a premise indicator, if, okay, and what do we say? Not a premise indicator. So put if, and then put an X. I want you to actually have that, the word if, and then X, to remind yourself that you should never tell me that the if part of a what? A conditional is a premise. Now, it could be that the entire that the entire conditional is a premise, but if is not telling you that something's a premise. Okay? All right, so these are some of the typical premise indicators that were in your textbook, some of them, and then I added some other ones. We've got because, since, in light of, owing to, due to these facts, as shown by, as indicated by, on account of these facts, for the reasons, the reason is, or reasons are, so we could do a backslash right here. The reasons are, the reason is, the reasoning is, the reasons are as follows from. Now remember, these are just examples. There are variations of these indicators, okay? So right here, I want you to write, and their variations. So what do I mean by variation? So instead of saying the reasoning is, you might see my reasoning is, okay? Instead of seeing the reason is, you might see for the reason that, okay? What's another one that we might shown? Follows from, the reasons are as follows. Yeah, so I think that's all we'll do for that one right there, okay? So remember, typically, these words typically tell you a premise is coming. Okay, so now let's go to this side over here. Word or phrases that typically tell you a conclusion is being put forth. I have another warning. There's a disagreement about this, especially if you go on the internet, but in terms of this class, okay, in terms of this class of philosophy, we are not going to count this word as a conclusion indicator, okay? So, what do you think I want you to do? Put an X over that, right? You need that to remind yourself that this class then does not count as a conclusion indicator. So some examples are so, hence, thus, therefore, consequently, accordingly, entails, we, I, you, they, can, it may infer. So any combination of these two, we, I, you, or they are warranted in, warrants, warranted in, proves that, suggests that, for these reasons, for this reason, it follows that, in conclusion, we may conclude, we can conclude. So again, this and their variations. So write the word variations right here, okay? If you see something like, let's see, due to these facts. Okay, so here's an example of a variation where you could have something like, owing to the fact that. When you see some typical phrase or conclusion indicators with the word that right at the end, count that as part of the phrase that is doing the indicating. We'll go through some examples where I show this to you. All right, so this is your argument iteration. Remember that this is due online. In the next module page, I have specific uploading requirements. I have specific file naming requirements. I have very specific requirements in terms of how you take pictures of your notes, in terms of how you use your phone and the camera. Also, keep in mind that you're supposed to have all of these documents all together, so staple it, or at least fold it in half with your name on the first page. Make sure your name is on the first page. Remember that you need to have that on the teacher's desk by the official start of class. If you're worried that you might be late or you might not make it, then what you could do is slide your completed forms under my door, but you have to do it at least 15 minutes before class starts. Let's say at least 15 minutes before class starts, because I'm going to leave my office at 15 minutes till. Oh, actually, that would apply only to students in my 11 a.m. class. So if you're not in my 11 a.m. class, you'd have to submit your notes. No, that would be the same. No, it wouldn't be the same. You'd have to submit your notes by, if you're in my 11 a.m. class, submit your notes to my office by 10:45. Everyone else, you would also have to submit your notes by 10:45 a.m. the day they're due, if you don't think you're going to get to class or you're worried about getting to class on time. Now, if you come in late and you have your notes, I'm just going to maybe have you work by yourself or put you in a group with maybe students who don't have notes. The thing is that I form groups based on who I see has uploaded their notes, and then to clarify, then to make sure that people who are pre-arranged actually have the notes, then I check to see who brought their notes to class. So make sure you bring your notes to class.